Hello, everyone. We are here. Hello, everyone. How are you today? We are here and we're going to study. Hello, everyone. We are here. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Book. We are here and we're going to study. Hello, everyone. We are here. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Book. We are here and we're going to study. Hello, everyone. We are here. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to study. Hello, everyone. We are here. I tried to figure out why is the echo, but I think it's a little bit better right now. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to study. Hello, everyone. We are here. I tried to figure out why is the echo, but I think it's a little bit better right now. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to study. Awesome. We are here. I tried to figure out why is the echo, but I think it's a little bit better right now. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to study. Awesome. My dearest friend, at this moment we start use the echo, but I think a little bit better. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to study. It's now my dear friend, at this moment we start use the echo, but I think a little bit better. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to my dear friend, at this moment we start use the echo, but I think a little bit better. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out why is the echo. We are here and we're going to my dear friend, at this moment we start use the echo, but I think a little bit better. So, my friend, I'm trying to figure out I'm gonna stop. The echo. We are here and we're going to Hello, friends. I'm sorry if at the beginning was a little bit complicated, but I hope we have a find the way right now. Um, let me just see if everything is going how it should. Isn't. Maybe that's why. Please forgive me for this. Try to figure out how to do the best work possible. It's My dearest friend, we start a while ago the study of this book, Pronunciation, with Alcyone. And Alcyone has a child that's, I'm sorry, Magdalena has a child that's named Alcyone, and also have an adopted child that's named Robbie, correct? So we are now in the second chapter, and we're going to study about this chapter. Uh, yeah. We are in the second part of the book, which I'm very proud of myself for having reaching this level. So that's it's a second part of the book, Renunciation. In this book, it's written by Francisco Cândido Xavier with the spirit Emmanuel. This book was psychographic. So what that means, psychographic, it's a phenomenon done by a medium. And the medium was a Francisco Cândido Xavier. Francisco Cândido Xavier wrote more than 418 books. And all these books and all those books were donated for charity. And also those books was psychographic by spirits, and it is a phenomenon between the medium and the spirits. Okay, if you wanted to know the first chapter, please go to Facebook, Long Island Spiritual Study. There are all the other videos. This video here today, you're going to do a little brief conversation about this beautiful, beautiful couple, Cyril and Magdalena. Unfortunately, life was very, very difficult for them. They had a very difficult expiation in this lifetime. However, however, Magdalena, she continued to be faithful to the material commitments to Cyril. Cyril was, if you want to know about Cyril Magdalena, you guys have to go to Facebook page, Long Island Spirit Study. There are other videos. Today, you're going to be talking about Magdalena, Alcyone, Robbie, Priest Damiano, Charles, Glenn. Those are the character in this story. This story is a true story that happened in France 1861, around the 17th century. This is a true story. So we are in the middle of 1681, right? So I'm going to read a little bit just to make the introduction of this beautiful story. And then I will talking about this beautiful, beautiful story. While in the middle of 1681, there have been some changes in Avila. Magdalena Villamil went to live in a modest and comfortable home in town after renting the farms there to the Istigaribs. Alcyone School had demanding the moving, which was made with great difficulty. The poor woman had aged prematurely. if not for her dedicated attention to Robbie. Remember, Robbie, who was Robbie? Robbie was a child who Magdalene adopted. And Robbie, he used to be, his biological parents were, the women were Magdalene servants, worked in her farm. Her name was Dolores. And Dolores' husband was João of God, or John of God, however it's you understand. And both, Dolores wasn't a slave, but John of God at 1861, 17th century, he was half slave. He was just become a independent. He was no longer slave. However, the previous owner treated him like he's still one. So he didn't have his complete independence. So he was no longer a slave, but he was kind of attached yet to his old life because he didn't have the means to continue his life as a free man. So he worked here and there for Magdalena as a helper, but he didn't get money from. He wanted to help Magdalena because his wife worked for Magdalena and his wife was independent, free women. She was no longer a slave. But John of God, he was a half slave, meaning he already had the freedom, but he didn't have the means to become complete, detached from his previous owner. Therefore, he had a family, but he couldn't provide for them due to the challenges at the time. So, their child, Robbie, born with deficiency, he didn't have all fingers. He was little bit slow, so he had some challenges that I already spoke about in previous videos. And now he's 7 years old, and he was living in the city de Avila in France with his adopted mother, that is Magdalena, and his sister Alcione, who at the time was 17 years old. Magdalena, she raised her children with hard working, and she was a very sick woman, and was after the fever that happened in France in 17th century, all the plague that happened in France in 17th century left Magdalena very post-plague. She still suffered the consequences, the reminiscences of the plague. So she was very sick woman, but yet she worked very hard in the farm. And also she made um, she made beautiful pieces to be sold in town. At the time, she lived in the farm, and she made beautiful pieces to be sold in the town. And now she lives in the town, and it's easier for her because she's already there. She doesn't need to travel from the farm to the town. And her daughter also is 17 years old, and she helps her mother in doing needle so they can help with the expenses of the house. Robbie was now 7 years old, and Alcyon was 17. The boy had begun primary school, while the younger woman had already completed her schooling according to the norms of times. Cyril's daughter, watched over by mother's conception and father Damiano, had learned Latin, English, and French, and had also distinguished herself in music with her beautiful and inspired compositions. In singing, she was the principal voice of the famous city cathedral shore choir. And her class's friends expressed special admiration for her feminine refinements, along with her impressive scientific knowledge. So Alcyone was Magdalena's daughter. Remember when Cyril went to the new world that is America in 17th century? So I had all the story that is in the previous book. We will tell in more details. You guys have to go there and see. And despite the challenges that Magdalena encountered, she also found a support of the priests. The priest, every day, he used to go to Magdalena's house to teaching um, Alcyone. And Alcyone, of course, she was very dedicated student. She learned. She was also, for her time, she was very intelligent. She absorbed the education very fast, and also she helped her mommy in the farm. And wanted Dolores to go to the city, to go to the town. She started accompanying Dolores in order to help Dolores, and perhaps knowing that she was so intelligent, younger girl, little girl, she possibly had helped Dolores as well in selling the all the things that used to be belong to the farm, whether it was the plantation that they have done, right? And also the needle artwork that the mothers, Magdalena, also have done. So they had gone a very challenging times for many years, but they never give up to have a faith in God and believe that there was a reason for their suffering. There was a reason for all the challenging that they went through. And they kept study the gospel at home. Every afternoon, the priest used to come to Magdalena home and they study the gospel. They study Christianity. Back then, in the beginning of the Christianity, they believe in reincarnation. So that was the teaching that the priest Damiano taught Magdalena and Alcyone. Later on, also Robbie. So with this teaching, become easier for Magdalena to understand the reason of her suffering. And it was easier for her to understand all the challenges that she encountered. And with her faith in God, life becomes a little bit easier for her. And especially for the fact that she had such a beautiful daughter, such a sweet girl that helped her along the way. Alcione, because she was such a dedicated student, she never forgot the teachings of Priest Damianos, such as she developed this sense of community, of service, and she was this kind of uh, girl. She was very different from the children at her time. She was very mature, and many times, Priest Damiano, he would stop and thinking how advanced Alcione was from her time. As Alcione become younger lady, Magdalena used to ask her about uh, dating, because at the time was something very pretty much that was what the woman did. They grew up, they were taught to be a wife. They at the time they were not taught to be a professor, a teacher, or so on. They were taught to be a wife. Because Alcione have already reached the age that many younger lady at the times would be find their significant others, the boyfriends. So she asked um, to Alcione how she would feel about to meet someone special that perhaps could be her husband. And Alcione said that she was not interested to meet anyone. And she also would like to be respectful to herself and the younger man at her time, because she would not want it to get married just to please the society if she didn't feel anything for the man that she was introduced at the time. So she said to her mom that married someone just to please other that would not be pleasurable to God. That would be against the God teachings. And her mother respect her and accept her form of thinking. And also, she grew very much close to Priest Damiano, and she has this desire to serve in a church, to serve her community, and to help. That is the paraphrase of Alcione. Sometimes, when her mother called her attention to the obligations of human life, she would say, "Well, Mom, it always seemed to me that such issues will never be solved through need, but through spontaneous sentiments. I need that is a need that is met might open the way to greater needs, where sentiment is the birthright of our eternal soul." I mean, look at the language that she uses, and also look the emotional intelligence that this lady has. She's definitely was much more ahead of her time. It's very common, even nowadays, a younger girl, 17, 16, is start to be interested in their uh, in the men, and the men's interest in the girls, and vice versa. So when they start to the spring of their youth, they start to become interested for the one that it's close to the heart to better fulfill their needs or their wants emotionally. They start to develop interested for falling in love. And she didn't feel that. Alcione didn't feel that. And that was something very interesting about Alcione. And Magdalena was very proud of her for her to be such a truthful to her sentiments and yet respected the sentiment of other. She could easily, because she was very well educated for the time. She spoke three languages. She knew science. She knew math. She knew the literacy from Greece and Rome. From the time just very wealthy people would have access to this kind of education. But Alcione had this level of education because the priest Damiano is to volunteer in teaching her. So therefore she learned, and she was so grateful that she took every opportunity to um, study herself, such as she become a great musician. She played the violin. She even singing and composed gospel music for the church. Isn't that beautiful? This is such a beautiful story. I have this little piece. At the time we are referring to, he had begun to attend the primary school classes held by Damiano, San Vicente Church, and every day he came home complaining. So we are talking here, we are talking about Robbie. Robbie was a child who had some physical challenges, right? He didn't have all the fingers in his hand. He had birth problems. Therefore, he was not able to be with the biological parents because his father was half slave, and the owner of the farm said to him that his son was not free. His son was a slave. Therefore, he had to kill him. So the farm did not want to have a child who had birth problem. So that's when Damiano and Dolores gave Robbie to Magdalena, and Magdalena raised as her own child. And of course, he was exposed to education as well because Alcione taught him and also priest Damiano. And he had sometimes difficult to accept the fact that he was black, to accept the fact that he has some um, birth defects, and he could not accept that he was a little bit different. So he was a little bit rebellious. Even though he tried to restrain his strong emotions and repent his past wrong doing from previous life, he, but from times his anger would come to the surface, and he'll be upset with his life. So he, of course, we can imagine if nowadays when someone has some physical problem, think God we got it much better. But nowadays, if some people has some um, physical problem, if it is mutilated in some way, many people I hope that it's not as many as a 10, 20 years ago, used to make fun. They didn't think it was a serious subject. They would make fun. They would thought that was something to enjoy. In some case, even bullying the person that would be different from them. So if it happened today, could we imagine it? Back then he was black, he didn't have arm, and the arm that he had didn't have a fingers, a hand and fingers. So he had a very challenging physical body. So he had hard time to accept his condition. But he born in a family that was very kind and gave him to Magdalena so he could have more opportunity. So we can hear here, we can feel how he felt at the time. One day he came home sobbing convulsively. Magdalena stroked his curly hair and asked, "What's the matter? Why you cry, son?" "Oh, I'm not going back to Father's Damiano's school." "Why not, son?" The other children said that you're not really my mother, that I'm slave of the Portuguese. But you need to pay any attention to that, Robbie. A good boy is obedient and doesn't listen to nonsense. So they start to explain to him, telling him, Robbie, you don't have to pay attention to naughty children. There are something more important for you to do in school than pay attention to these children. So she told him, Magdalene, "Did you pray today, my son?" And he said, "No, mommy, I didn't." And she said, "Well, you should pray because prayer help us to face our challenging and also uh, relieve our pain." So he said, "Okay, então I'm going to pray." And then he prayed, and while he was praying, Alcione like put her arms around him and said to him, "See, uh, between us, there is no difference." And he said, "Yes, it is. I'm black and you are lighter." She said, "It's no difference because I love you and you are my brother." Some in down in these words. And then he started to complain again. She said, "Robbie, did you remember the child that you saw at school this morning? He was blind, and his sister had to bring him to school and to go pick it up. And he was so eager to see Mr. Damiano, but because he cannot see due to his blindness, he asked Mr. Damiano for his hand so he could kiss. So why don't you pay attention to this kind of people that are good and accept their condition with resignation? Then pay attention to those naughty children in your school. Focus more in people that has something good to teaching you than in those that don't. Then do not pay attention to those who do not have something to add to your life. And Robbie, talking to his sister, talking to his mom, he felt better, right? And he, at the beginning, he did not want it to practice violin, said that his entire body becomes sore as he starts to practice violin. His body becomes ache as he's practicing. So Magdalena, no, um, Alcyone said to him, well, that's happened to me as well when I was learning, when I was practicing. And now I'm feeling much better and I can do it. So I could do it. So you. We just need more practicing. When with practice, you learn to play violin just fine, more dedication and obedience. So he did that. He listened to his sister and he practiced violin. And of course, Mr. Damiano came to the house later as he used to do. And he also taught Robbie mathematics and so on. So then another member in this group, Mr. Priest Damiano, shared to Magdalena that he has a nephew. And his nephew, uh, when his mother was very young, she lost her husband from just 5 years of marriage. And she couldn't she couldn't heal to the loss of her husband. Her grief was so deep that Priest Damiano, as his um, uncle, with all his love and patience and education, couldn't help her to understand the death of her husband. So she succumbed such a grievance that she was not able to heal from, and she's ended up dying. Um, and she left a baby, right? She left a baby that's just born, and she didn't want her son to suffer, not nor to become orphan. So they were a rich family. So she donated all the money to the church, and she asked the church, which her uncle was a priest, to the orphanage of the church to accept her son as a priest, to educate him, so one day he become a priest as well. In other words, she offered her baby to serving God. So in the older days was very common. The parents would choose who the wife, who the girls married, and the father also would choose who the son were married, and it was very much connected with people with money, right? If they wanted their kids to marry to someone who has money, and pretty much the money was very tight to the group of the people who already had money, because they did not marry people from outside of the group. So so pretty much the marriage was arranged, and the mother wants the son to go to serve Master Jesus as a priest. Therefore, he went to the church orphanage, and all the money that the mother died, mom had prior she died, she donated to the church to make sure that her son would be always supported by the priests and the religious figure. But Charles was not happy with this condition. Of course, he studied theology and he was prepared since little to become one of the priests. And he actually went to islands where his ancestors are from to do the first mass, because in Ireland was the place where the family would live. So the fathers and the mother, remember, they were in France, but a lot of people from France was from islands. So he was gone to islands in order to do the first mass there, where his parents was from. So Priest Damiano comes to Magdalena and said to Magdalena, well, Magdalena, I really would like to take a time from the church, do all the kind of service. I'm getting older, and it's very important that I prepare someone so they can be in my place. And that was the plan from Priest Damiano. And he said, I have my nephew who is a priest and he's young, and I would like for him to be by my side in here and Avila, so he can I can assist him and prepare him to be a good priest, and later on he can substitute. He can take my place. And he comes to Alcione, knowing that Alcione is a very good girl, and he asked Alcione to help his nephew to serve in the church. He asked Alcione to work in the church as a volunteer in order to him to help Charles. And Charles, as soon as he arrived in France from Ireland, he went to Magdalena's home. And there, they were very kind and happy, and was the first encounter between um, Charles and Alcione, Magdalena, and Priest Damiano. So now let's see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna read just these two parts so we can understand. Charles, my only nephew, and he has always been deserving of my affection. His father was a descendant of Spanish people who began living in Ireland after the deaths of the Invincible Armada. On trip to the mainland, he fell in love with the sister that God had given me, and married her soon therefore. They were very happy together for 5 years, and then my brother-in-law died in a shipwreck. His wife, Emilia, was stunned and heartbroken, and because of her grief, not could restore her good spirits. Neither the little son nor her religion faith could save her from the apathy she had succumbed to, and she finally died. So that lady is Charles' mother. Little Charles lived with me for 3 years during his early childhood. I observed his temperament and did my best to remove him from the path outlined by his mother's will, but his Irish uncles made such a point of respecting Milly's troubled mind that there was no way for the child to escape her plans for him. So remember the mother planned for the son before she died, like I said. So I will now repeat myself, and I'm gonna end here. Let's remember where I'm ending. I'm ending that Alcyone and Charles meet each other's in Magdalena's home, and Priest Damiano prepared Charles to substitute him, and he going to uh, removed from the service of the church and go do other things, perhaps to visit the new world. So let's end here, and until next week, have a wonderful day. May God be with you. This book is a beautiful book, my friend. Is a renunciation from Francisco Cândido Xavier and the Spirit Emmanuel. This book is psychographic by the phenomenon, by the mediumship phenomenon. This is a very serious work of Francisco Cândido Xavier and Emmanuel. It's so important that we take a little time from our day to dedicate to the spirituality, to dedicate to God and Jesus. May we have the strength to have the courage to face all the challenges and expiations that comes in our way. Let's go finish tonight. Dear God and good spirits, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity of being here, of study, this education, this beautiful book, a book that teaches us about love, about renunciation, and about serving our community. And above all, be a servant of God and our beloved Master Jesus. May God be with all of us, and good night.